8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
International superstar, Miss Butta B-Rocka.
You are now tuned in to Butta B-Rocka on Transparency Talks Podcast.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Transparency Talks Podcast. I am your girl, the host with the most, Butta B-Rocka. Listen, we have an amazing show for you today. But before I bring on my special guest, I just want to thank you guys for holding me down with Transparency Talks Podcast. We are on 6 syndicated stations in London, Italy, Japan, South Africa, Nigeria. We're also on iHeartRadio. We're on Roku. We're on a station in Atlanta. Shout out to Blaze One Radio. We're on a station in Chicago, and we're on a station in the West Coast. I did forget the name. I'm sorry. I will remember it, and I'll post it. But we outshine, as my husband says, from his South Carolina days. We outshine. But anywho, another thank you. Thank you so much to everybody that has supported me with my film, Finding the Perfect Guy. If you haven't seen it, make sure you go check it out. I executive wrote, produced, directed, starred in, and y'all know I put my own music in it. Hello, somebody. And last but not least, we have BBR Indie Films is back in full effect. We have our next one on July 24th. So if you are here in Atlanta, if you're in another state, we have plenty of people that come from out of town and even from overseas to come to BBR Indie Films. We host this every other month at Studio Movie Grill in Marietta, Georgia. Tickets are still on sale, but we are getting down to the wire with our tickets. You can go to bbrmediagroup.com to get more information. Follow us on Instagram at bbr-indie, that's INDIE films. And so without further ado, he is a music composer and producer. Can you guys please show some love for Marcus "The Fingers" Manderson?
What's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming and showing up. It's nice to see you. I ain't seen you in a minute.
Yeah. I know you've been globetrotting the world, and we see each other at events. So glad to be a guest on the Transparency Talks podcast.
Absolutely. So I want to dive right on in, Marcus.
Yeah.
Do you prefer Marcus or you want to be called The Fingers?
I'll let you choose. You might whatever you like saying. Either one is fine with me. The check clears in both. So.
Hey, you know what? You said a statement right there, so I'm not mad at that. I'll call you The Fingers because I know that, you know, that's your entertainment name, and this is entertainment. Yeah. So, all right, The Fingers. Can you tell everybody a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, The Fingers. I am a music producer, composer. Grew up playing in the church, piano. I'm a Hammond organ artist and played piano in the church, a Black Baptist church in Northern Virginia for almost 30 years. And then pandemic hit, church went virtual. And I started getting into like sync and other sides of music and of course conferences. And then that's a quick spiel. I studied music in school, Full Sail alum. So shout out to all Full Sail alum out there in the world. Great network, great community from that school. And just figuring this music thing out and trying to pursue the passion while supporting family. And I do work full time. So sort of striking that balance of working full time in the corporate world and making music and sync and trailers and production music and composing. So all of the above. That's sort of like a quick 1-minute spiel.
That was a good elevator spiel. Well, shout out to you for being able to hold it down with a 9 to 5 and getting your music on and everything. So that's really cool. How does your background in church music influence your approach to composing across so many genres?
Playing in specifically like in like a Black church, Baptist church, Pentecostal, Kojic, those types of churches in at least in America, the music that we had to play every Sunday, it was basically like doing a concert We had
Facts.
the church I was at, like we had a different choir sing every Sunday,
Right.
and I was playing every Sunday for the most part for the better part of the 25 plus years, 30, almost 30 years. And yeah, it's we're doing 10 to 15 songs, and not just hymns. Of course, might have a hymn or two in there, but we're doing like, if you listen to some of these artists, Ty Tribbett, Kirk Franklin, James Hall, who's like insane with his music arrangements, Richard Smallwood, and then of course some of the greats. They're all great, but some of the traditional greats, I would say, like Shirley Caesar, James Cleveland. So, and then of course, as the musicians, we're like, okay, we might take a hymn and be like, how can we flip it and do our version of it, but still keep the same melody, reharmonize and things. So being able to adjust, because with gospel music, there are different genres. You have hip hop gospel, you have, sort of the CCM, like traditional, like not too many crazy chords. You have jazz gospel, and not knowing whatever the choir wanted to sing, until they send us the list for the week. Being able to apply that to what I'm doing now, especially in the sync space, where I might get a brief, it's like, hey, you want to try this pop thing, or you want to try this country thing, or this, I'm willing to try certain genres. Some genres I know I can't do. Like I'm just like EDM. I'm just like, yeah, I tried it. At least I gave it a good shot. But I'm like, I can't leave that to those. But being able to play in church has allowed me to have that flexibility, and then also the ability to pick up songs, because they would give us a song to learn. Sometimes we wouldn't get the song until Saturday, and they're like, we want to do this tomorrow. It's like, wait, we didn't even practice this with the choir. So they would give us, the musicians, the song like the day before. Sometimes I'd be driving up to church, like listening to the song, trying to like get my mental notes or write out, some of the keys and stuff. It's like, why are we doing this today? Like we didn't practice this, but we figured it out. And in some ways that helps when it's like, we get briefs, we get references. It's like, we got to make something similar to this song, and make our version of that. So it does help sort of the speedy recovery, or the speedy learning of songs and adapting and being sort of agile in that environment.
Absolutely. I have my own band, and I do corporate as well, and I also do a lot of weddings. When I get those phone calls, and sometimes they have us just off the cuff, have to learn all these new songs and different
Yeah.
genres and everything, and you got to be able to go with the flow. And I'm also from the church, and you do have to have that variety and everything, so that's really cool. Fun fact, I am working on my very first contemporary gospel album, so I'm really, really
Ooh,
excited, and this
okay.
is my first time announcing it. So
What? That's
yep,
dope.
yep,
That's
yeah,
dope.
I'm very excited. I'm really am. Okay, so you compose music for Disney theme parks and films like Himshire.
Mhm.
What was your biggest challenge and rewards of composing for visual media?
So for Disney in particular, it was more of a mental challenge. Like uh, if they don't like what I do, um, I can be like blackballed from working with them, or anyone they say like in the future. Not that they would do that, but just in my
Hmm.
mind, this is me thinking like, hey, if this doesn't work out, this is like the one chance I have to work with Disney. So with that in particular, I had a meeting with the team on a Friday, and they're like, hey, we're working on this theme park. We're updating this theme park attraction. Um, it'll be launching as part of Disney 100. This was back in like September of maybe September, late September of 2022. They're like, we're launching an update to this attraction as part of Disney 100. Last year was the 100th anniversary of Disney. Um, so they were updating this attraction called Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, and they wanted to tell the story of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. And they wanted an African-American composer to compose the music for this video before people go in to see this attraction. And at the time, I had released a neoclassical trailer album, and I shared it with a bunch of networks. And some people that were in one of the networks I shared it with were working on this attraction at Disney, and they reached out and they're like, "Hey, would you be interested in working on music for this?" And I was like, "Of course." And also leading up to that, my big goal that year was to land a Disney trailer, like to get music on Disney movie trailers. So I wasn't mad when this opportunity came up. Had the meeting
Yeah.
with Friday, and then they were like, "We know you won't have the music by next week, but we're going to do a quick." We're going to watch the video, do a quick spot check on Monday. And if you can just have the music to us, within the next month or two, maybe within the next month. So I told my wife, I was like, that weekend after I had that meeting, I told my wife, like, I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to work on this music all weekend. And I sent it to him Sunday night. I had the meeting with him Friday, sent it to him Sunday night. It was like a 15-minute, like short intro video. You could call it like an indie documentary type style, with like talking heads and different animations and things. And they had different music cues throughout. So I sent them the music, and that Monday morning they were like, "What is this?" I was like, "This is the music I made for the project." And they're like, "No, this is like awesome." And so I was like, I did most of the work that weekend. And it was very few edits after that. I had a couple of changes. They edited the video, so I had to make the music adjusted to the videos that they had throughout the next few weeks. But knocking it out like so early in the process, I had the rest of the time to just focus on like those minor edits and tweaks and changes. And then I couldn't talk about it for 6 months. And then when it launched in January, was able to take my wife and kids. When we were at NAMM last year, we were out there at California, and I tell my wife, like, we have to go see this, and being able to go there. And I went live and experienced my music at theme park with my wife and kids. I think that was the rewarding part of that experience. Not really any challenges there. Challenge was actually on the music creation, because before that I've worked with, I've composed for like video and things before, but their process was a little different, where they had specific hit points and things that I had to figure out with the DAW that I used, which is Logic Pro, and figuring out how to make sure that the music was aligning with their time code and things. Where before that, I didn't have to really deal with time code and lining up things. It was just more of like, just make sure the music aligns with the picture and tells a story musically. So this was very specific, and now I'm a Disney vendor, so that's great.
Yeah, that's really cool to be able to say that. But I do want to go back a little bit. Okay, so you graduated from Full Sail. You've been playing in the church for over 30 years. And then when COVID happened and church closed down and went virtual and everything, you got into sync. But tell us about what that process was, because I mean, it's not just I want to pitch and become a sync player, and get my songs, and then just poof, all of a sudden you writing for Disney. So
yeah, it definitely, it seems like it was overnight, and it actually is fairly quick when you think about it. But it was just really me. I had a lot of musical time when the pandemic hit, because I didn't have to go to 3-4 hour rehearsals at church, usually 3 or 4 times a week. I didn't have to go to church all day on Sunday. There were personal gains where I got to spend all of Mother's Day and Father's Day at home with my family. 2020 was the first year I was able to spend all of Mother's Day and Father's Day with my kids, because I would usually be at church until the afternoon, and then we could spend whatever the rest of the day was left. So starting to realize that 2020, I entered over 200 music contests. So I wasn't really getting into sync yet in 2020. I was just trying to figure out what I could do musically outside of church. So entered a bunch of contests, won a lot of gear and software because of those contests. And then 21, one of the companies I was working with, they were sort of getting into sync. They're called Hard Drive. It's like a subscription community, HRDRV. And they were getting into sync, and they were like, hey, we have a sync opportunity for BMF stars. They're looking for like hip hop beats. So I sent them like 5 beats, and then like this one instrumentals, or 5 cues, I guess is what we call it in sync. And they sent it through. They're like, hey, the music supervisor for BMF is liking your stuff. Can you send some more? So I sent them like 5 more. And they're like, yo, they're really liking your stuff. Can you like send more? So at the end of it, I think I sent like 20 or 30 tracks, and about half of them got placed in that season of stars. And then they were telling me like, hey, you'll have a decent check coming in about 9 months. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, I did this today. So learning that whole process of getting back into, I was sort of in sync previously, like years before, but I signed a terrible deal and had music placed on like Real World Road Rules, but I didn't know what sync was. I was just focused on church. So this was me like getting back into sync. And the problem I had is that it happened so fast. This was like this company I work with. I was with them probably for a year at that time. They started the same thing, and these placements came through like within a month of them starting the sync side of things. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna work with them. I didn't know about any other libraries or anything. I just continue to work with them. This happened so fast. They said I'm going to get paid in a couple months, so I can wait it out. And they had opportunities come through, and I was sending music in, but didn't get any other placements for the next year. And I was like, okay, wait, what happened? Because the first happened so fast for me. And at the time, I wasn't doing any research. I didn't hear stories of people saying, yeah, it takes years to build up the resume. I was like, no, this happened for me like in a month. So I was like, yeah, I can make beats. I can make a beat every day and submit it to them. and nothing for years. So after that, I was like, okay, let me figure out what's happening here. And then I started learning about other libraries, listening to podcasts, learning, going to events, talking to people, figuring out what sync really is, at least in this day in the pandemic world, and started working with other libraries. So, but that was all because of the pandemic, without having to focus so much on the church stuff, diving into sync, and then that transition over the last 2 years to trailers. But it was all I was sort of jaded from that first experience because it happened so fast. It's like, oh, the placement just came like almost overnight. And now it's like, oh, wait, what happened? So it does take time. It takes patience. It takes that willingness to continue, consistency and persistence. But yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Can you tell everybody, because everybody on here don't know, what is sync that we are talking about?
That is a good question. Sync is short for synchronization, and it is a license that production companies, TV productions, film, video games will pay to get music that they can synchronize to picture. Technically, sync is not like radio show. It has to be syncing music to visual medium. So it can be, film, TV, video games. I've had, it's more custom composition, but I've had music on, like I said, theme parks, videos, or museum exhibits. There's such an array of opportunities that people don't even realize in the music space. It's like, even for me, like growing up, it's like I wanted to, try to get in the studio with Jay-Z and Beyonce and the biggest artists of the world. And then it's like, you start to realize there's so much more opportunities just beyond working with artists. And you can work with artists in sync also, but there's other avenues for, if you're a music composer, producer, for your music to get out there. And if you're an artist, there's other avenues for your music to get out there. But sync, that's a long way of saying sync is basically the process of getting music paired with picture or video or images.
Okay. And for someone that's new to the sync world, what are some key steps they can take to get their music noticed by music supervisors?
Yeah, first is making sure that you have we're going to assume the music is great. The music has to be at a certain level for sync. It doesn't have to be the best of the best. There's music that could sync that might not make it like on the radio. And then there's also shows that like there's scenes that don't need like great pristine music. They might need some like grungy, some type of bad singing, or what could be perceived as terrible things for maybe a parody or a spoof or something. So first the music has to be there, the content, and then on the business end, as a music creator, you have to have what's called a PRO. So in the US, that's like ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC. If you're in Canada, that's like SOCAN. Most other countries only have one to choose from, so you don't have to make that decision. But in the US, we have three. And really two, ASCAP or BMI. CSAC, you have to be invited to. But with the PRO, you register for them. I tell people today, I'm with BMI, but I tell people to go to ASCAP because they're free right now. But I've heard that BMI pays more. I don't know. I've only been with BMI, so I don't know. But you can go to either one. BMI is a fee right now to register. And you want to register as a writer. And I say register as a publisher because there are some companies that will split the publishing with you, or they'll let you keep your publishing if you're working with like a sync agent. So with ASCAP right now, you can register as a writer and publisher for free. And what you want to get is basically like your social security number for music. And it is called the IPI/CAE number. And that number is your identifier for when you start getting into sync. You put this number, on the metadata of your music, or when you're registering with libraries and things, and then that's how you get paid, basically. It's your social security number for music. And they will use this number to identify this song is tied to this number. This person created it. They own this percentage of this song. So we're going to give them this percentage of the royalties that they're owed based on what they did on the song. So it's a lot of admin work on sync. Making the music is probably the 10% of it. The other 90 is doing the research, finding the right libraries, submitting your music according to their guidelines, because every library has something different. I like the ones that do their own metadata, so I don't have to do as much work, but there's some that I have to do the metadata, and that could take time. So it's really just doing your due diligence. So step one, having great music. Step two, signing up with the PRO, getting your IPI/CAE number. And then step three, I would say, is finding these libraries. You can go there's a bunch of lists out there. And then once you find these libraries, go to their site. For example, let's say Pink Shark Music, all one word, pinksharkmusic.com. On their site somewhere, there should be a place that says contact us or submit music or want to join the team. You would look for something along those lines. And there should be a form, or they'll tell you how to submit music. A lot of them might say email us MP3. Some might say send us waves. Some might say send a disco link, or send us a streamable link we can use to stream your music. And what I like to do there is if I find, okay, let's use Pink Shark Music. You go to Pink Shark Music. I like to go to their social media to see what placements they've talked about that they've had, to see if my music would align with what they are pitching and getting synced. And if it does, then I try to put together, my sample of like 3 to 5 tracks to send to them that are in that genre, and then submit it based on their guidelines. So and then the last step is wait. You submit to libraries. 2 years ago, I was submitting to a bunch of trailer libraries. It took them about 6 months to respond. I think sync libraries are a little faster, but it's patient. So it's like you submit to a couple libraries, maybe give them a couple weeks to respond, and if not, maybe follow up. But yeah, it does take time. And then after that, like if they accept your music, some libraries take time to get it into depending on their ingestion process, to get it into their system. It might take them another month or two. So it's definitely a patience game. And then once it places, then you got to wait for payments. So it's not a overnight success thing. It's very different from composing for film, and it's different from trailers. It's different from beat making for producers and producing on that side. So it's really definitely a patience game.
Well, thank you for breaking that down. I am with CSAC, by the way.
Ooh. I don't know too many people with CSAC. Okay.
Really? I've been with them for years now. Yeah.
Dope.
Yeah.
That's like the holy grail. Not the holy grail, but that's like the hidden VIP club, because you have
It
ASCAP
is.
BMI.
It is.
But CSAC, you gotta. Yeah,
they
you
only
gotta
take so many people, and you got to get invited, and yeah. So I'm definitely grateful to be with CSAC.
That's dope.
But yeah, I've been with them for years now. All right. So you mentioned Pink Shop Music. Can you tell, based on your experience, for new producers and new artists that are getting into it, can you give out any additional reputable music libraries or licensing houses a new producer should consider approaching?
Yeah, just off the top, I know Pink Shark is one. Bannecore, I don't know their website, but Get It Done Music. There's so many these days. I'm trying to like run through the gamut. And then on there's a bunch on the trailer side also, but just focusing on sync, Get It Done. There's Morrison Young, but that's like 4 or 5. There's Lyric House. They're a big one. I think they focus mostly on songs with lyrics. So Lyric House is another one. But yeah, again, do your research. Go to these sites. Some of them, I know. I was looking at one earlier this week, and they weren't accepting submissions right now. So it's like, okay, I guess I got to either wait or go just look for another one. But there's so many out there now that we have options to go. And another way to get in is if you go to their Instagram or whatever, and they're talking about posts or placements they have, and if they tag the artist that got them that place, or the artist that created the music for the placement, try to see if you can connect with the artist or producer and collaborate with them. I've gotten into libraries just by collaborating with artists, and they're saying, hey, I want to submit this over to this library. It's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And then I've gotten into the libraries just from collaborating with artists who are involved.
That's dope.
So that's like another great way to get into like a library.
Yeah, that's definitely dope. One of the things that I've been seeing is a lot of gatekeepers in the sync industry. So how do you maneuver the landscape of music supervisors and other gatekeepers in the sync industry? How do you connect? Because they usually don't pick up your calls, or if you're cold calling, like you just said, contact a producer or try to connect with the artist to get in with people. But if you're on LinkedIn, or if you're trying to cold call and you're trying to do this research and reach out to these people, how do you really form that connection and get through to the gatekeepers?
So it's I have to figure out how to structure my answer because what I do is different from most people because I have things to offer that most people don't have to offer. Meaning, because I do work with like conferences and things, I can say, "Hey, would you like to be on the panel?" And then that sort of is an easier way to break in. Sometimes, literally 2 weeks ago, there's a music supervisor. Her name is Ashley Newmeister. She music supervises. She was doing the game for several seasons. I think the Neighbors. She's Proud Family. The Proud Family. She's a music supervisor, and she literally just posted like, "Hey, I'm doing one-on-one meetups. You pay a nominal fee and you schedule a one-on-one meetup." I had a one-on-one meetup with her, and during that call, was able to get insight into what she's looking for these shows she's music supervising. So that's one way. I don't see that often where music supervisors just like, "Hey, pay me this and we'll have a chat for an hour, 30 minutes." But that is like to have a one-on-one chat with a music supervisor. For me, it's priceless. Also conferences, like I mentioned, like if you can, it's really hard. I know I'm in the DC area and most of these conferences are in LA. Luckily, a lot of them now are happening in Atlanta, which is a little closer. Some of them are in New York. None of them are in DC. But these conferences, you might have to take, invest once a year. Decide. I'm a huge advocate for NAMM because that's where I'm most involved with. Hopefully, maybe South by Southwest next year, but that ticket is expensive. There's sync related conferences like the Sync Spotlight where you were there, and that was in Atlanta. There is Sync Con, which is in LA in December. There is if I had to choose one more to go to this year, there's PMA Production Music Conference that's run by the Production Music Association. If I had to choose one more in-person conference this year, I would definitely be at that one, which is in California, and I don't know the date. And there's virtual conferences. I'm actually speaking at a virtual conference on August 3rd, which is the Level Up Sync Conference. So if you can't go to these places in person, find the virtual conference. There's virtual meetups at this point, almost every week from different sync companies and sync communities. A lot of them are on Facebook. There might be some on Reddit. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. So a lot of these communities are on Facebook and LinkedIn. Maybe you can check Reddit, but you can join them. They're doing meetups, weekly meetups, monthly meetups, and they're having chats with music supervisors. And some of these, at the end of it, they say, "Hey, how can people connect with you?" Sometimes, and actually often in some of these communities, I'm in these Zoom sessions and there's like 10, 20 people there. And the music supervisor is giving away their email like right there on the call, and the host is like, "Hey, this is only available for the 20 people in the session, and you can send music to this music supervisor right now, and we'll send it through." So really, it's just finding those communities and being part of them, being active, and of course, going back to the first question, having the music, having your business together, so that when they see that you're sending certain links to them, they're like, "Oh, this person knows a little bit about sync." Their things are formatted correctly. They can just they see the information they need. If they want to place it, they're like, "Oh, okay, this has 3 writers. I can determine who's going to get paid for this." Just less work for them. So,
Right.
But connecting, the first, I would say, if you can connect in person, would be ideal at these events. There's also Whelp It Up in Chicago. There's a bunch of events. Whelp It Up is in Chicago every year. That's from What Up Pitches. So first, if you can get these events, if not, if you can get to virtual and one-on-one chats with them, if they have a chance for you to talk to them one-on-one.
Definitely. What are some important things a new producer or artist should know about collecting royalties and other forms of compensations from sync placements beyond registering with PROs? Are there any additional copyright registrations a producer should consider for music sync?
So registering with PROs, that is a question that I ask the libraries either when I'm submitting music or after the placement is made. It's like, okay, when I submit music to a library, I don't release it on streaming platforms until if I get word it's going to get placed. And then it's like, okay, once it's placed, if they know it's going to be on this show, especially if it's a song or if it's going to be on this like ad or whatever, then I can ask, before it's released, hopefully, can I put this up on streaming platforms? Because there are some libraries that will do all that. There are some libraries that will register it for you. There are some libraries that will release the album on streaming platforms so that they can promote that way. So I think I won't say a lot, but I believe some sync libraries do that. Now there are sync agents who might have those direct connections with music supervisors who might not do all of the admin of a library. So a sync agent might take your song and try to get it placed. But then it is up to you to do all the registering and the submitting with those platforms. So BMI, ASCAP, definitely. If you are doing the streaming thing, there's Sound Exchange, which is more for, I believe, non-interactive royalties. I want to say Sound Exchange is more for things like Pandora, which I don't know who's streaming on those platforms now. Song Trust. I know Song Trust gets a little tricky for publishing admin, because if you register your song with Song Trust and they assume the admin for your song, it could be harder for sync libraries to register that song. So if I'm sending it to a sync library, I might just ask them, like, hey, are you going to handle the admin publishing? Are you going to register this with BMI or whatever? I'm with BMI, so are you going to register this under my name and everything? Sometimes the library will tell me up front. Like, I work with the library, the one that I got the BMF, they told me up front, they're like, hey, we're only going to take the 50% of the sync fee, but you got to make sure you register with your publishing so that you get all the back end royalties and things. So yeah, there's a huge, like, not a learning curve, but there's just steps to take of where to register your music, and how to collect, make sure you're collecting on all those avenues, and like nothing's missing out, because if you do forget, someone's going to take it. Like, I know there's some of these companies have what's called black box royalties. So if no one claims it within a certain amount of years, it's respectable, maybe like 5 years, 6 years, it'll go to this black box where it's basically going to be distributed to the top earners of that company. So like the high, the big artists are going to get those black box royalties after 5-6 years. So you definitely want to claim it because the money's there. But yeah, there's so many avenues, and I would say do your research. Whether you are going to distribute it with like DistroKid or TuneCore or whatever else is out there. If you do want to go through Song Trust, make sure your BMI stuff's together. Sound Exchange. There's so many. MLC. There's Content ID for YouTube. If you think you're going to get some big plays on YouTube, you want to make sure that the library isn't going to register it with Content ID, or that could cause issues. So there's so many avenues, and I won't say loopholes, but there's so many things to learn and pick up on the just collection side for all the payments.
Definitely. Okay, you really did break that down, and I hope you guys were listening, because he really dropped a lot of great dimes. What would you say is some of the biggest mistakes people make in the sync and trailer world, and how can they avoid them?
I won't say. Well, obviously the mistakes I hear people, not following directions. If it says send MP3 file, then you send a WAV file, or if it says send something that is pop and you're sending like hardcore rap, and it doesn't match the brief, that could really like ruin the relationship that you're trying to build with these libraries or music supervisors. So not following directions. It's really some on these briefs, which is basically a brief is a document. It could be an email or whatever. It could be a text message. It's basically words explaining what type of music is needed for the project, and it could be very detailed. It could say, "Hey, I've seen briefs that say we need something in this key at this tempo because it was cut to another song at that key and that tempo, and they want to match that without having to pay whatever the big royalty is for the other artist." I've seen briefs that have been pretty vague, just like, "Hey, we just need a song about love or whatever." So just follow directions, whatever the directions are. For me, I keep a document, Google Doc, of the libraries I work with, and I have bullet points like, hey, this library wants 48K 24-bit WAV files. This library wants MP3 files. This library wants, and I just have bullet points of how to submit to them, how to label the tracks, because libraries have different ways of labeling.
Right.
And so ask them, how do you want to label them? How do you want me to label the files when I send it to you? Do you want me to send the stems, or can I just send you the stereo WAV or MP3 or whatever? Can I send you the and I usually do AIF. I usually don't do WAV, and that's because metadata is usually embedded in AIF. It's not embedded in WAV. If we can talk about metadata, but asking the libraries, how do you want me to like work for you, and making note of it, especially if you work with a bunch of them, so that when you're working with this library, here's how they want their stuff, and send it to them that way. Because if you mess up too many times, they might just be like, we have to don't send us any more stuff. Not that I've heard that, but just follow directions, follow the rules. So that's one. And then the other is patience. Like if you send music, it's really I forgot who said it, but create, what is it? Create, submit, forget, repeat. So you create the music, submit it to an opportunity, forget about it, because if it lands, great, but forget about it and keep working on these other opportunities. And they'll tell you if it lands, but don't be like, hey, I sent you this track 3 weeks ago for this opportunity. Did it land? Or with disco, that's great, because disco, we can track when people are listening to our music. You can send a customized link, and you can track like, hey, this person listened to the link at least, or they didn't listen to it. So that's sort of good with platforms like disco, where you can sort of track those customized URLs. I would say that's like a couple of mistakes, like just following directions, being patient, and being consistent.
Yeah. And another thing I'm hearing is definitely make sure that you are on top of your business and stay organized with your business.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Organization is key, especially if you're submitting songs to like an exclusive library, and you're not keeping track of that, and then all of a sudden you send it to another exclusive or not exclusive library, and then it's like, why is this song exclusively over here but not exclusive over here? Like, you can't do that. So definitely learning and keeping track of where things are, where they're submitted. And you did ask about the trailers also. Trailers is different, because trailers is a very specific format and formula that not everyone is probably willing to do or will do or learn. So trailers are very specific. They have a specific structure. There are some sync libraries in the trailer space. I like to focus mostly on the trailer side, working with trailer libraries specifically that do trailers day in and day out, instead of like a sync library that does trailers every once in a while. It's like everyone having their specialty. It's like if you are having heart problems, you might want to go to a heart surgeon as opposed to like a general surgeon or practitioner. They might know a little bit about the heart, but someone who's like looks at hearts every day or whatever, operates on hearts every day, you might be more comfortable with them. So for me, on the trailer side specifically, focusing on working with those companies that are landing these trailers left and right, and it's like how. So finding those companies, doing the research, that's the other part of it, is doing the research, because people reach out to me all the time saying, hey, I would like to submit music to your library. And right away, I'm like, you haven't done your research. Like, nowhere does it say I own a library or have a library or I'm a library owner. And I'm just like, I'm not a library owner. I'm not a music supervisor. But people, I think they just don't know. They think sync licensing, they might think everyone in sync is a music supervisor. It's like, no, there are different roles in this space. So trailers are comparable to sync, but it's a whole different ball game. It's really, for me, it's one of the sort of upper levels of sync that takes a long time to sort of get into and get the formula structures down and get the right sounds that are needed. Not a long time, but it definitely takes some time to learn and figure out that whole side of it.
definitely. Okay. What kind of projects are you most excited to work on in the future?
I did talk about like a Disney trailer. There's a couple of films coming out this year that I'm really hoping to land trailers for them on the Disney side. I just finished. I had to do a version 2, a neoclassical trailer project for library. Neoclassical is actually the style of trailer music that has gotten me the most opportunities as far as working on that sound for other libraries, and that's what led to working with Disneyland. So I do have a personal affinity to neoclassical trailer music, and I enjoy doing horror trailer music because it's like you can almost do anything you want on the like horror style music. I don't mind doing the what's called epic hybrid on the trailer side. And I really like doing what's called trailerizations, which is taking a song and turning it into a movie trailer version. So the most recent one I did was Not Like Us, or the most recent one I posted, Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. I trailerized that. And then I try to submit it to libraries, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get it placed on something. So I enjoy doing that style of music. As far as projects, it's really whatever comes my way. I'm working on music for a film. This is more composing instead of sync, in collaboration with a company I work with. And that film, I think I'm supposed to be working on it later this year, but I'm doing the music now, like off and on, so I don't feel pressure to have to do it like crunch time. So I'm doing a track here, a track there, sending it in. Hopefully that works. So for me, it's just whatever. I just finished a sample pack for a library for a sample pack company last week. So musically, just really being creative, and I have to work on some epic cinematic hip hop stuff right now for some artists for another library. So yeah, just I always have music to make. I always have projects to work on. So I never have like a writer's block or anything. Or if I do like get into that, it's like I can stop that project and go to another project for a little bit. Like let me just focus on this, and then or find a collaborator that can help give you ideas if you ever find those writer's block moments. But I'm excited about whatever is coming. I don't know what's coming, and that's the great thing about sync. It's like I might get a brief tonight on some style of music that I've never heard of, and it's like, oh, I would love to give that a try. So yeah, just excited for the opportunities that are coming, and I'm excited for travel also. I've been asked to speak at a couple of events this year, some on the West Coast, one in Canada. So hopefully that all comes through, and I can do more things like that, traveling and workshops in person. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I would like to take this time to thank you so much for taking your time out to talk to us here at Transparency Talks Podcast. I am positive that everyone learned a lot. I actually learned some new things myself, so that's always a great thing. And in ending, how can people get in contact with you or follow you?
Yeah, I am at Defingaz, DAFINGAZ, on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I have a Facebook group called Secrets to Success. So definitely join that community. It's free to join. We're getting close to 3,000 members. And also, just for listeners of this episode, if you go to my site, defingaz.com, and you click on sample packs at the top, you add whatever you want to the cart. Use the code transparency, like the first word of this podcast. Use the code transparency, and you will get a discount on what you put in your cart. So you can, I have sample packs. I have courses showing how I make like trailer music or how I'm producing songs. I have a networking webinar there. So go to defingaz.com, click on the sample packs at the top, and anything you see under that, use the code transparency for a discount. And I will leave that up probably for about a week. But if you listen to this like in life 10 years later and you're like, hey, I want to check out some stuff, just shoot me a message and say, hey, I listened to your episode on Transparency Talks. I would like that discount. So just let me know. But yeah, Defingaz everywhere, and defingaz.com is the site. And let's definitely connect.
Thank you so much for being a part. And with that, everybody, we're going to talk to you guys later. Peace out, y'all.
All right. Peace.